Hello, everyone. Good morning, or should we say good early afternoon? Uh, we're excited to be back here and ready to go on. And what is presumably our last chapter of Psalm. And so if you've been journeying with us, we've been going through Psalm. We had gone, probably done 4 or 5 of them, right? And then we took a little
break
in Christmas. And so we decided to, instead of doing 150 of them, which is 52 in a year, right? 52 Fridays around there.
Yeah, it'll take us a while.
Around 3. So we've just chosen 4 from each of us, and now we're doing our 4th one chosen by Stephen. And so we're going into Psalm 27. But as always, before we get in, how are you guys doing? How's the week treating you so far? Gabe, you good?
Doing better, much better than last week. We've had less snow.
Good.
Last 2 days have been kind of sunny, mild weather, 45, 50 degrees. I know, for you guys that probably sounds cold, but for us, that's super warm, at least for this time of the year. So, yeah, pretty good. The snow is melting, which is the best part.
It's always good. All right. What about you, Brian?
I'm good, bro. Drinking mate, that's it. Like I got
That's life.
Yeah. Not much to share over here. As far as weather, it's pretty consistent. But yeah, no, I'm honestly kind of excited about going through this chapter with you guys.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to my tia, Monica. Hola, tia. Excited too. I'm just drinking mate as well. I already had my cereal as always, and I just am realizing that I don't think I heated enough water. So
it's all right. You can
come here, bro.
Whatever.
You can step aside, heat some water while we're in the middle of a conversation. It's all good. Man, I should have prepared my mate.
Yeah, I'll do. Whenever Gabe talks, I'll just get out.
I should have prepared some mate because yeah, I feel all alone now.
Yeah, man. Just suck on your thumb. That might help.
Yeah.
Bro.
All right.
When I was talking, you can go and make your mate.
Oh, that's a good point. I'll do it.
My problem is I don't have a gourd anymore.
What happened to you? Do you still have the bombilla?
Yeah, I have a bombilla, and I have Sherba too, but I
just use a cup, dude.
We might just do that when we're talking. Bro, you look like you're about to do a presentation about like prison ministries or something. Be like, what's up, guys? We got Gabe here, and he's an ex-convict from
oh, no.
He's joining us live from Rikers Island.
I just think of Michael Scott on The Office when he comes in.
The Dementors.
About when he's talking about prison. Man, I went in prison for
What's the name for his thing? Something Mike, was it?
Prison Mike. It's Prison Mike. Yeah.
That's hilarious, bro.
Yeah.
Prison Mike.
So what psalm are we in today, Seb?
All right, yeah. Let's get into it. We are in Psalm 27, and so we'll just read through it. And again, most likely our last psalm, so it's a bittersweet moment, but we'll be moving into a different place. But all right, so Psalm 27 reads as this. Let me just put it on here. Let me change the background a bit.
What?
Yeah, change our background there. I don't know if we can see it in a different way, but no, you can't really see it. All right, so Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. For in the days of trouble he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me upon a high rock, or set me high upon a rock. Then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At his sacred tent, I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not reject me or forsake me, God, my Savior. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors. Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, spouting malicious accusations. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. Powerful psalm. Thank you, Stephen.
For writing this.
Thank you, Stephen, for writing this. And yeah. Any thoughts that jump out? Any jump, you know.
You write kind of fast. I'm kind of still taking it in, but honestly, like I always say, I always go to the little letters and numbers and whatnot
In the bottom, yeah.
and try to connect what it is that he's talking about. And I think that the whole psalm kind of narrows down to, the first verse.
Yeah.
And it all stems from there, and it all concludes there as well.
Yeah.
It's a full circle. So the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? And then obviously the last part, wait on the Lord, be strong, take heart, and wait for the Lord, because of verse 1.
Yeah.
And so when I'm looking at verse 1, the Lord is my light. Obviously, Revelation talks about this and other verses as well, but it stems from Isaiah, right? I think John is in Revelations kind of taught by Isaiah's verse here in Isaiah chapter 60, verse 19. It says, the sun will no more be your light by day, nor will the brightness of the moon shine on you. For the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your God will be your glory. And so, at least when I'm looking at this text, and it seems that for David at this moment, I mean, I don't really know what's going on, but he has a lot of stuff going on, right? A lot of people kind of just want to watch him, and his life is just so dramatic. Like, it'd be a perfect novela. And when it comes down to it, he's like, well, I'm going to trust God to be my light, whether in that moment it looks like there's any light shining on me at all, any bit of blessing, if I see any of that or not. I'm going to trust God. And I think that verse 1 really speaks to that, because the thing that we consider to be, what brings us light, right? The sun and the moon reflecting the sun's light. David is pretty much saying, if that didn't exist, there would still be light, And so a lot of times we hold on to the things that we see, the things that are tangible. And God isn't limited to those things that we see that are tangible, that we can actually grasp and completely understand and explain. He sometimes is inexplainable. And
Yeah. Oh, froze a bit.
Sorry. And I feel like that's basically what. Am I back? Am I good?
You're good.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So basically, I feel like that's where David's coming from. It's like, even though I cannot touch, I can't feel, I can't understand, I can't smell, I can't grasp, I can't truly know, God is still going to be my light.
Yeah. I like that. There's that. I like that kind of verse 4 and 5, I guess, there in his desire. Right. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. And then continues to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple, right? There's this, and we kind of talked about, I think in Psalm 73 too, this like proximity or desire to be in the temple, right? Because obviously there it was like the temple or the sanctuary. This is where God is dwelling. And so the closer I am to the temple, the closer I am to God's presence, which brings protection and blessing and security and all that. So it's interesting, right? You're always, as we see through the Psalms, right, that desire to be close. And they're literally saying, I wish I could dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, right? To never depart from the actual temple, from the actual physical location, right? Because I know I'm safe in his dwelling, as chapter 5 says, and he'll hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me upon a high rock, or set me high on upon a rock. So I think it's beautiful, right? As we transition to the New Testament, where even Paul brings up the language of how our bodies are now the temple of the Holy Spirit, right? But the temple of the presence of God. And so we don't have to necessarily be at church now to be near the presence of God, to have that security, blessing, and guidance. Now, instead of us being in the temple where God is, he is in us, right? Wherever we are, which is a crazy change, right? Where, obviously the Spirit was working in these people already beforehand, but they, as time has moved on and after Jesus comes, he says, hey, we don't need no sacrifices anymore, because I'm the ultimate sacrifice. You don't need I'm with you at in all places. So it's a cool reminder for us that these people had to go somewhere. They had the pilgrimage, right? That they would travel to Jerusalem and from all parts of the world to come and do their, yearly sacrifice and stuff. And now we can just, wherever we are, be and have that intimacy and that connection with God, which I think is pretty great. It's pretty awesome, right? And I think it speaks to us in our time now with COVID, where maybe a lot of our churches have opened up or we've been virtual or whatever it is, but it just reminds us that, hey, God is wherever we are. And if we're willing to, accept him into our lives and welcome him, he's there with us in all places, right? We read that in other Psalms too, where can I go to hide from your presence? There's literally nowhere we can hide from God's presence.
Yeah.
So beautiful that God is wherever we are. And we have, I think, even though that can become a maybe a stumbling block in and of itself, because we get used to him being with us all in all places, that we stop seeking him or stop trying to, I need to, because they were physically walking somewhere. So it helped them stay in that mindset of, all right, I need to go to where God is. And now it's like, oh, he's anywhere I'm with, anywhere I am. So that's, but
I think that's really cool. The fact that the point that you made with Paul, the correlation of the temple now at least being our body, and how God's presence is readily available to us now that the veil has been broken, right? When Jesus says it is finished, the veil is broken in the sanctuary, and we can boldly approach the throne of God now. We don't need a high priest from the tribe of Levi, the house of Aaron. We have Jesus now, who brings us straight to God's presence. So that's awesome. I also think that there is some kind of, at least, hint there that you don't see, that David isn't just seeking this individual contact with God in his house, but also, the collective, right? The fellowship that you get when you go into the temple, into the sanctuary, and you're there, right? Kind of like Psalm 43, was it, that we studied together, where, I think so. I don't know if it was the sons of Korah or it's David writing, but
42, sons of Korah,
where essentially the author, right? We don't know if it's a he or maybe it's a she, but where the author writes, like, I used to go with the multitude to the temple, right? So maybe David kind of has the feeling as well, like that's why he wants to go into the Lord's house, not just because he likes to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and inquire and meditate. I think there is something that's important there. Over the past week, I've been watching the PBS special on the Black church. I don't know if you guys able to watch that at all.
Yeah. I need to. Is that
Have
online too?
you guys seen? Yeah, you can watch it on PBS. So go to PBS, download it on your your smart TV, Roku, whatever. And yeah, it's absolutely free to start an account. You can watch it. This is like one of the most informative and beautiful docuseries that you will watch on just African American history and culture and what the church meant for Black people in the United States throughout history and what it means for Black people today. And it is just a phenomenal piece of art and work. And one of the things that stood out to me, at least, is that you see this underlying theme throughout history for Black people in America, that the church has always stood as like this place of freedom and this place of like security and safety for the Black community. Like even throughout slavery, they couldn't, be obviously free. They couldn't express any kind of agency and independence. But when they went to church, when they went into the praise house, like, that was the place where they actually felt free and they felt a sense of autonomy and they felt seen and they felt protected even.
Yeah.
So they were constantly thinking about like, oh man, like can't wait till Sunday so that I can go to the church. And throughout history, even through the civil rights movement and up until now, that's an experience that is still vividly seen. They did a few interviews inside the, in the docuseries. I don't want to give all of it away, but one that stood out was that this lady is saying like, yo, look, when we go to church, our burdens are lifted. Like we literally go into church and we feel like our life is lighter and easier to get through when we leave because we went to church, because we were in the presence of God. And I think that David is seeking that as well. Like he knows that life outside of the presence of God, specifically the sanctuary, is burdensome.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way inside the sanctuary, as you said, there's like a sense of protection. And I don't know why I'm thinking also of Joab. You guys remember when, Solomon is about to take the throne and David telling him like, look, you got to get rid of these two guys because they're going to be a problem. And Joab, he runs into the sanctuary and he holds on to the horns of the altar, because he thinks like, oh, I'm protected here. Yeah. And then he gets killed. But yeah, I guess protection that wasn't, extended to him in the sanctuary. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking of all these themes. And even now it's relevant to us. So many people feel that sense of safety, that sense of, burdens being lifted when they come into the sanctuary.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, we had your mission is accomplished with me today while I drive to work listening to the Psalm, and your comments have blessed me greatly. So beautiful work, guys. No, I think that's beautiful, right? In that I'm gonna check out that PBS tonight and check it out, the special there on the Black church. But yeah, how many people, right, see the church as a safe haven and running away from the stresses of this world? And not just that, but even putting into the context the Sabbath, right? It's just like, all right, okay, Friday night's here. I mean, for us, it's a little different because we work, and I know I'm excited for that book that Gabe recommended. What was it called? The Pastor's Poet?
Oh, let me get it right now. I actually have it.
Yeah. So just to go off of that same verse 4, because we're imagining things, right? Oh, the temple and all this stuff, the house of God, and David didn't really have the temple, right? And so, like, for him, the house of God was like a few, cloths, like just hanging over, like different things. The pastor as minor poet. Nice.
Yeah, there it is.
Put it up on the camera, bro.
The pastor as minor poet. a must read according to Gabe. If it's not good, blame Gabe. If it's good, it's good.
Yeah. And just thinking about this, I'm reminded of the story where, right, he's a fugitive and he goes and he eats the bread that is supposed to be, right, saved
Yeah.
for God or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And it's like for David, yeah, it's a place of refuge, but also like the imagery is like a place of like just um provision, and not provision as like, oh, I'm
Mm.
blessed, I got a raise today, but provision as in like giving life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he was like extremely hungry. His men were like extremely hungry. I'm assuming
Mhm.
as well. But when he gets there, he's like, "Yo, just give me the showbread."
Yeah.
Um, and I love the fact that I feel like the servant of God in that moment was so in tune with like the spirit that he was like, "Yeah, here it is, eat." And wasn't like, "Oh no, you can't eat from this because it's blessed. It's only for God, and you're not allowed to partake in this." Um, and so, like when I look at David saying this, one thing I ask of the Lord, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord. It's not just talking about what he feels in the house of the Lord, but also how he's received in the house of the Lord.
Mm.
And I think that many times we fail to understand that being in the dwelling place of God means being or dwelling with others.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and dude, I love this song because man, David was like the main guy who just welcomed people.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
kind of lived through that himself as a fugitive, and so whenever he has the opportunity to welcome someone who others think, oh, should be killed, right? Like the
Yeah.
crippled son of or
People.
nephew of Saul or something like that.
Mephibosheth.
If he was
Yeah. People are like, oh, he's gonna get killed, and David's
Yeah.
like, no, come have a seat at my table.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of like the dwelling also that David is coming from and that he's thinking of when he
Mhm.
says, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord for the rest of my days. It's
That's
like,
good.
man, this blissful like community.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Good.
I love that thought, Brian, because it's interesting how whoever the priest was during that time that took in David and allowed him to eat from the table of showbread, and the bread that's literally dedicated for the sanctuary service. It's amazing how they were able to accommodate for the person in need.
Yep.
And that's a very big message for the church today, that we ought to be like that sanctuary community that is able to reaccommodate things for the person who is struggling to make ends meet, the person who is looking for some kind of safety net to fall into.
Yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely beautiful.
No, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I like that because it goes with kind of the early church idea too of what the church really was, right? More than just a meeting place on Sabbaths, it was every week there. The church was like a unit that was actually alive and moving, an organism where they're meeting at people's homes, breaking bread together, having fellowship, meeting also at at church and all that as well. But it was more of just um it was more of just a time where they were actually using their facilities or abilities or even finances to help others in need as well. So I like kind of like when we had, and as we still do, right, kind of the what's going on in the border, and then you have some churches that are able to house people that are coming in, right, and take care of them, and if they're looking for asylum and stuff, instead of having them in the detention centers, that churches are opening up their doors for them to stay there. So for our church to be not just a place where people meet on the weekends, but also a place that during the week is doing something and providing a space, like Brian was saying, right, where people feel welcome, where we don't feel so high and mighty spiritually that we can't help out others and say, no, this is sacred space. It's like, yeah, it's a sacred space to be able to help and give life and healing to other people in that place. So yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah. I was hearing actually a pastor preach this weekend down in Miami, Pastor Arnaldo Cruz, and he was mentioning how throughout the pandemic the church has had to like reshift its focus and think about how it's going to do things to be able to function now. And one of the I guess blessings that came through the pandemic, which has been just a curse for so many people, is that the church was able to reshift and start doing things differently. And I guess they started a food pantry or food bank within their church, able to give people who are struggling financially some food. And now the church is known in the community as the place where you can get some food. Right. So like people will drive by and be like, hey, where do I get food? It's like, oh, well, you go down the road, you're going to see the Adventist church there.
Wow.
That's where you can get food.
Wow.
And so that's how it should be. Right.
Yeah.
Like, hey, where can I get safety? Where can I, have this hospitable experience? Right. The neighbors should be able to say like, oh, there's some Christians that live down the road from here. Go knock on their door.
Help you out. Yeah.
I
like that. No, it's kind of like the thing we always see, here in church or in school, right? Of just like, if your church disappeared overnight, would your community even notice that it's gone?
Yeah.
And for many people, it'd be like, no, maybe just the members in that church, but nobody in the community would even know that we were there. So what kind of and obviously every community has different needs that we could, as a church address. But yeah, I like that. It's good. The powerful verses for me, the last two, probably for me, my favorite there. Verse 13 and 14 it says, I remain confident of this, that I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, take heart, and wait for the Lord. And it's interesting because the New King James translates it differently and says that first line, instead of saying, I remain confident of this, they say, I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So I think that's a beautiful way to put it there. If I had no hope, I would have given up, right? I would have not been able to keep going. But because I know that I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, I know I can keep going. And so he can encourage himself again, as we've seen throughout the Psalms, where David has this reality in front of him, whether it be hunger or fear of being killed or persecuted, right? As we see when he's fleeing from the Philistines or from Saul or from anything that's going on. He's always encouraging himself, wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, wait for the Lord. But I love that, this hope that he is confident in, that really keeps him going, that he believes in, is that he's going to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And that keeps him going, regardless of what he faces, the loss that he experiences, the trials and tribulations that he's in. It doesn't negate what he's experiencing. It doesn't erase the problems that he's facing. I mean, who knows? He could have been writing this. I'm not sure when he writes it, but when he's in a cave, right, fleeing from Saul, or when he's as a king, whatever it is, but he knows that it is the hope that keeps him going is being able to see God again, seeing the goodness of God in the land of the living.
Yeah. And I think that part of that confidence is rooted in his experience in the in the tabernacle, in the sanctuary. Right. He's able to inquire, right, to meditate on the things of the Lord. And what he says there in verse 4, which I think is at least probably my favorite part of the verse, is that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord. Right? Like that's what he wants, just to behold the beauty of the Lord. And when you essentially understand the beauty of the Lord, right, the deep mystery that just is beginning to be unraveled in David's mind, he understands how deep and wide God's love for him is, and that's why he has that confidence that he's gonna survive the oppression that he's feeling, the enemies that are coming to attack him, that are lying about him, right? Because he mentions the false witness of his enemies. He's confident that God is going to see him through that. So it's rooted in understanding who God is, right?
Yeah, good.
He has this idea of who God is because he's seen it, he's inquired about it in the presence of God, which was the sanctuary, and now he's able to have that be like his orientation throughout life.
Yeah. Just to add on to what Gabe is saying and going back to the community aspect, Gabriel and I had a professor, right, Mendieta, in undergrad, and he would always talk about the concept of like the other and the stranger in Scripture, and how a lot of the Bible, at least the Old Testament, is referring to the presence of God by coming into the presence or beholding like the stranger or the outcast, and how that shows you different dimensions of what God is like by seeing him in different people, or at least his creative signature in different people. And when I look at this, to gaze in the
You froze, bro.
Yeah, my bad.
You're good. You look at it and you get
in the community aspect is again gazing into like a multicultural, multi-ethnical, like just a really broad base of people that you can see the goodness of God in. Going to the text where he says, I will remain confident of this, I will see the goodness of the Lord. It's not just beauty, but the goodness of God. And again, my Bible has a little letter there, and I went to that, which is just probably like the next chapter over, Psalm 31, verse 19. And Psalm 31:19 says, "How abundant," this is David talking again, "how abundant are the good things that you have stored up for those who fear you, that you bestow in the sight of all on those who take refuge in you." Right. And so when I look at these things, it's like, wow, look at all these people that have come to take refuge in you, in your dwelling place, God. How good you've been to everyone. And it really just kind of it kind of kills you a little bit, because you come to church and, man, like sometimes you struggle to see the goodness of God and in the lives of others, not simply because they're having a tough time, but also because we don't share. We don't really share the depth of our soul and what God is doing, or what good things he's doing for us, really. We have a really tough time being vulnerable with one another. And I think that David is kind of looking forward to this group of people that will actually like share of the goodness of God in their lives. And I don't think he's seen it yet. Obviously, he's saying like he's surrounded by a bunch of guys that talk smack, but in the end, I think that that's what he's longing for. Right?
Yeah, and I would even add part of that is having the discernment to recognize the goodness of the Lord in other people, right? Without having the need of them sharing their story, to be able to look at someone who has a totally different lifestyle than me and recognize that the goodness of the Lord, was subscribed into their DNA. It's injected into them. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Brian.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it reminded me of what we read the other day in Psalm 139, right? Verse 17. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is some of them, or how amazing are your thoughts concerning me, right? So how God is just, all he has towards us or for us is good. and he's navigating the world of evil in the midst of that. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen this idea of the hope, and not just seen the goodness of others, of God in others as well, but just His goodness in the midst of what you're facing. With what happened with our dad, and going through that, right? And how if we didn't have any hope that God is victorious over death and over sickness and pain, you kind of live life like, what's the point, right? Kind of what Asaph says in Psalm 73, which, like, I look around, and seems to be no benefit from being a follower, because those that are bad do good things happen to them. And me, that I've kept purity, washed my hands, I've done all the things, I've gone to the temple, like, what's the point, right? And so it can be easy, if you don't have that hope that is seen through the temple and through what God does and His sacrifice and the life that is to come. It's really easy to lose hope and say, man, this sucks so much. I can't keep going. I'm just going to give up on my faith, and at least just enjoy the life that I have here and make the best of whatever I can. But that beautiful hope of the goodness of God, and seeing the goodness in others here and now today, I think is a beautiful reminder. And I wish we would do that more in our churches, right? Share, just be more vulnerable, like you're saying, Brian, raw, and really express and share. Really builds confidence when you hear stories of people, not in a way like, oh, look at me, and like, oh, it sucks that you didn't get your answer, but more of like, hey, take heart. God answered my prayer, and even when it doesn't, right? Hearing just that you can still have hope when your prayers don't get answered is encouraging too, to say, hey, how do you maintain confident in God when He hasn't really done what you wanted Him to do in the midst of all this? So
Yeah.
We tend to complain about, like, oh, God's not talking to me. Like, man, look at how He used to talk back then. Like, He would just pick His prophet, and he would go and say whatever God wanted him to say. And it's like, well, today we believe in the priesthood of all believers, but like, if you don't say anything, like, how do you expect anybody to speak into your life? Like, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, nothing. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, and we're not really seeking Him as these dudes did back in the Bible, or dudes and ladies. Whereas now we kind of go by crumbs, and just, I'm gonna read this, little, nothing bad with devotion. But, we're not really seeking God. It's more of like, God, 5 minutes. All right, here we go. What is it, God? And didn't speak. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Whereas they're literally,
Yeah.
completely invested with wanting to hear from God. David says, I'm seeking, like, I'm so thirsty for you, just like this, like we saw, as a deer pants for water. Like, I just, that's all I'm gonna do today, is just listen and wait on.
I think part of that is not just the listening aspect, but the fact that David in that psalm, he's asking questions like, where are you? Why have you abandoned me? And I think those questions are examples of David seeking God, inquiring. And so part of the experience that we can have as well, in our daily lives, is not just, writing or reading scripture, but also, asking God the tough questions that we often ponder in our souls, like, where are you? Why did you let this happen to me? Why did you let this happen to my family? And so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And you see that throughout all of the Psalms, right? These people, these men and women, just going through really tough experiences and bringing it to God, basically, through, the poems that they'd write. So you see that even in this Psalm as well. David is just, doing some soul searching, and he's pouring himself out to God. And, he's asking, for things like, oh, allow me to stay in your temple, allow me to see your beauty, allow me to, do this. Don't let me succumb to my enemies. Don't let them, have their way, so on and so forth. And I love how he ends the psalm, which is, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and He shall strengthen your heart. Wait on the Lord. And the fact that he ends it kind of like in using similar language as how he starts it, right? The Lord is the strength of my life. And essentially he's ending, God is going to strengthen my heart. So he still has like this rooted expectation that God is going to intervene.
Do it. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's beautiful. Yeah. So just holding on to that hope. I mean, the importance of community, the importance of seeking after God, and the desire of proximity with Him. I love that. All right, real quick, big takeaway, and then we'll move into our lightning round here. My big takeaway is just, I guess, I mean, and I guess from the Psalms, right? We can kind of maybe do that. It's just how David really makes it seem as kind of like Brian was alluding to, right? In the midst of actual hunger and thirst and all this, what he desires more than anything is presence and an audience with God, right? I mean, it reminds me of Jesus when he's with the Samaritan woman, and the disciples come with food, and he's like, "I'm not hungry." I'm like, what do you mean you're not hungry? And it's like, I have food that you don't even know, like, this spiritual connection that I have with God of helping others, loving others, showing goodness to others has fed me, my soul, so much so that even my physical hunger isn't as, as bad. So I like that, just that proximity, desire to be close to God and be with Him.
Yeah. The fact that David, at least my big takeaway would be David going into the sanctuary specifically looking to gaze on the beauty of the Lord, right? Because we often forget, and me included, especially in a world full of ugliness, full of so much hate and division, how beautiful God is, like, and how I guess refreshing and re-energizing that is, and just healing that is to our souls. And David, that's what he's looking for, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord. And I don't know, maybe that was the thing that he needed the most, just going into the sanctuary and just being in the aesthetic, let's just say, just looking at the different colors and the aroma of the incense and all that. So yeah, I think that's my big takeaway, how central that is to our own healing.
That's good. Brian?
To get new internet. No, I'm kidding. So when I'm looking at this chapter, I have to go back to verse 1, because even in like verse 14, when he's like, wait for the Lord, be strong, take heart, and wait for the Lord, like he's trying to convince himself again, like, oh, wait for God, because things don't look like they should for someone who fears the Lord. And
good.
I just had to go back to verse 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. And when I think of that verse, specifically the way that, David puts it, dude, I can't feel the warmth of the sun. Like, I don't feel like the light is shining on me. I don't feel like the blessings are, coming on me. And so it's like, even though there's no light from the sun, there's no light from the moon, I have to trust the fact that God is my light, and whether I can see it, feel it, or whatever, or not, He's there. And I can take refuge in the fact that I know, or I believe that He is there. So I think that that's kind of like my takeaway, because oftentimes it's very easy for us to feel lonely, or maybe feel like, man, like, oh, I did all this and it's not appreciated, right? And I think we all go through those moments, or it's like, man, how I wish I could do this for someone, but you feel kind of like chained and not able to do that thing for them, or whatever your situation might be. I think there's a key takeaway for all of us, is that in the end, whether you can or you can't, God's still there. And I know that sounds like very abstract, but I don't know. That's just how I see it. That's just how it is, man. So I think that I can take refuge in the fact that I know God is there, regardless of my situation.
That's good. Beautiful. So before we go into our lightning round here, I just want to always plug in Las Doñas just because they are they're doing good stuff. But yeah, just if you can see here, go to Instagram page. They have a lot of different things that they got going on. Their posts and their videos are live there on their Instagram page. So follow them. Doing great things, having great conversations. They just had a conversation on mental health and COVID with some health professionals or mental health and coping during COVID-19. So check them out. Great things. We're not biased at all. But all right, lightning round. Questions to finish up here. We have a couple here, so we'll see what we go. All right, first one's first. WandaVision villain. What did you guys say? I had said Agatha or Agnes.
Yeah, you did. You were right, bro. Props to you.
But I had some insider. I had someone that knew the comics that was kind of feeding me some information that he thought they knew about an Agatha. That
I think we all thought that Seba, once the show said it was Agatha, we all kind of was like, yeah, Seba read up on this.
¿Qué caramba pasó aquí?
How did he know that? No, I had someone that had mentioned, about the comics about, Agatha being an actual prominent person. And yeah. But they did a good job of not giving it away. Go ahead.
I actually don't think she's the villain. At least I too looked up, I had to look up who Agnes was in the comics, and she essentially mentors Wanda. She's like her mentor in the comics. She's a pretty neutral character. She's not really a villain. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's probably a bigger and darker villain that maybe be revealed today. I haven't seen the episode, so I don't know. But I guess we'll find out together. I think there's another villain behind her, behind the whole entire, scheme.
Yeah. Satan.
All right.
I don't want to give any names.
I'm messing around,
man. In the comics, it's essentially his character, but has a different title.
Yeah,
we've actually seen him in other Marvel movies.
Who is he?
In the comics, he doesn't have that name that Brian just said. He's known as another villain name or title, whatever.
What's his name? Title?
I don't remember it off the top of my head, but essentially, it's like his character is modeled after,
Wow.
I was messing around because like Bible and Brekkie, and it's like, oh, there's a greater villain.
I mean, yeah, you want to talk about
parallels and Marvel for sermon ideas too, and small group stuff. So, but all right, next question is, and maybe you know or you don't know, what's going on with The Bachelor? Does anybody know?
Yes, kind of. My sister tells me these things.
Right.
I don't watch The Bachelor, so I have no idea.
Hey. It's okay, bro.
Yeah, I know. Listen, it's okay for guys to watch Bachelor. I know plenty of guys that do, but essentially the host was defending a contestant for past remarks that were racist and insensitive that she said. So the host was kind of defending the remarks, whereas everyone was not, and trying to hold her accountable. And so now they are kind of like dragging him on Twitter, and essentially he's almost, or maybe he did get fired. I don't know. But yeah. And he's been the host for The Bachelor for years.
Yeah. Okay. Brian, any words?
No, that's kind of like what I heard too. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And so Nani filled me in. But essentially that, I don't know if the detail is that he defended her comments or he defended her, like as a person specifically. But either way, it's kind of like condoning a little bit of what she said. Though it's always tricky when it comes to, previous comments. But what happens with this specific situation is that it wasn't too long ago,
Yeah, it was.
So that's what it wasn't like, 10 years ago she said this. Because 10 years ago we were all a lot more ignorant than we are today. But no, it was relatively recent, so that's what made it like an actual this is serious. Like you can't be
playing it out. Yeah, you
Right.
should.
Just to add, the Bachelor for this season is a black male, you know?
Right.
So it
Yeah.
kind of, and she's, I believe she's a white girl. So it
Well,
really changed the dynamic a lot when
and
you consider that.
I think his family, like, he's mixed, so he's like half white, half black.
Yeah.
So like he's pretty attuned to like the whole
Going on. Yeah. I know a lot of it came in a interview that he did with a previous bachelorette that she's happens to be black as well, and so she was asking about kind of the comments and the way he defended the other girl that's currently on the show was kind of just seen as insensitive and stuff. So that leads me to my next question. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on cancel culture versus consequence culture. I took this from, I think Seth Pierce put it on Twitter. There's been I don't know if it's been a big debate, but just a lot of, whether partisanship or whatever, is people like, oh, cancel culture is not good because anybody can, which reality, right? If people look at our background, we could have posted something, sometimes my Facebook brings up things that I commented and I'm like, thankfully nothing bad, but it's just like, wow, I was really dumb back then,
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? I kind of like this, kind of pitting this cancel culture versus consequence culture, because reality, anybody can get canceled for any reason, at any point. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
I think that once you become more educated or exposed to the reality of different situations, it is your duty to go back and mend as much as you can. I did post dumb things on Facebook before. I went back and deleted those things that I posted on Facebook. Because just do your homework.
Growth.
Like, do your homework, go back. Like, if you mess something up, like, try to clean it up. And so I think that you can ask for forgiveness. At the end of the day, that people might not see it as like just because of the whole like Britney thing documentary. Then this other, like, what's his face from like NSYNC or something like that, or one of those.
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, Justin. Yeah, he came out and was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Basically, I messed up your careers." And it's like, well, it's too late now, man. But it depends on people are going to see it how they want to. They can be like, "Oh, that was good of him."
Yeah.
Hopefully, he's an ally to women in the industry now. And some people would just say like, "Dang, no, like no apology is enough for what you did." But when it comes to cancel culture and consequence culture, I do believe that there are consequences for everything you say. Yeah, you have the freedom to say anything you want.
Right.
But there's consequences to saying what you say, period. Just because you have the liberty to do so doesn't make you any less responsible for your words.
Good.
So I don't know if cancel culture is like the best way to do this.
Right.
But you're hearing this from a white guy, so I mean,
I have some thoughts on this. I certainly believe that we have to be held accountable to our actions, to our comments. We look at, just the news yesterday of, I forget the guy's name, but he was one of the U.S. gymnastic team coaches who participated in sexual trafficking, and he assaulted many of his.
No way, I hear that.
Yeah, dude. So he committed suicide. But essentially he was found guilty, and he didn't want to live with the consequences, right? And so most people would say like, certainly, okay, well, yeah, bro, you got to be held accountable to these actions. Like you can't the damage that you did to these young women, is just
that's
like you have to. There's no way that we can consider you to be safe to society without having to go into rehabilitative the system, essentially, whatever, prison, whatever you want to call it. So It's interesting to hear, however, a lot of people using cancel culture just for things about themselves. Like, you're going to hear a lot of opposition to cancel culture from people who really never had to be held accountable to the actions that they've
That's good.
made, but they're certainly willing to cancel whatever other people, and just disregard them in different ways. So, like, for instance, it's often being used now by politicians from both sides, of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, and their disdain towards cancel culture, right? What call it. Nevertheless, we have, a movement here in the United States that tried to undermine the integrity of our election, where, over 80 million Americans voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to be in the White House.
Yeah.
And then you had like these groups of people trying to essentially cancel the voice of the overwhelming popular vote.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the same people that afterwards are like, oh, they're trying to cancel me by taking away my book deal. Right? Like, no, Papa, like, there's consequences to
That's it.
some of the things that you do. There are consequences. And I often heard this. I don't know who it's attributed to, who's the person who said it, but essentially accountability feels like persecution to people who've been privileged. So yeah, there's a lot of commentary on this. There's so much, and I don't want people to think that this is just a partisan issue. Like, no, man. Like, Democrats, in this example that I've given, Democrats have participated in voter suppression before, just as Republicans have as well, or canceling the rights of individuals through other means. We look at the crisis at the southern border.
Yeah.
And how it wasn't just Republicans who were putting kids in cages. We saw that this week with the Biden administration reactivating
and just different language, but the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So cancel culture, at least from how I understand it, isn't about canceling, like erasing people from society.
Yeah.
No, by all means, it's just holding people accountable to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And I think of like, my friends, the closest people around me, they show that they care and they love me by, correcting me. If I'm out of line or if I'm doing something wrong, I expect that, right? Yeah. Sometimes it hurts, but hey.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that's important. I think rephrasing maybe taking consequence culture or just accountability, just saying, hey, look, even in the Bible, right? God will, forgive what you've done, the wrong things, but you see there's consequences to your sin, which led to Jesus on the cross. I mean, he died. Literally, Jesus died because of our sin. So there's consequences.
Look at David. I just want to give this example. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
David was the man after God's own heart. This guy, wrote so many Psalms. We've been studying it, throughout these past weeks. He's the king, right? Jesus is often associated to him by being the son of David, right? Yet, although Samuel, had prophesied, right? Dude, God tells him, look, Papa, I'm sorry, you committed too much bloodshed. You can't build my temple. Like,
yikes.
You're not going to be a part of that project. I can imagine David being so upset. Like, man, after I put all the plans together, like
you would have been on Twitter. I just got canceled. I
organized all these, these contractors from Damascus to come, and the,
accountability.
All the craftsmen and the artisans to participate. Like, I put all of that together.
Yeah.
And you're ready to go. And then God says,
nope.
Nah, you can't, bro.
So
Like
not you.
you committed too many atrocities. So
Yeah.
essentially, like, what is that? What do we call that? Is there a terminology that we can use to describe what just happened between God and David? Like in modern, at least postmodern day, it's like, oh, that's cancel culture.
Mm-hmm.
But do you agree with God?
Yeah.
Like if you
right.
disagree, then essentially you're calling God a liar. You're not calling him good. And
Yeah.
so
That's good. That's
yeah,
good. I love that illustration. Yeah, there's just consequences to your actions, right? And he could have been like, "Man, that was years ago. I'm a different man. I'm old now. I'm wiser. God's like, nah, I can't. So it's yeah, interesting, beautiful, beautiful. All right, last one here, and we'll go into the sports realm. Baseball predictions, winners and losers. Give me one winner and one loser for this upcoming season. I'm not a big, so it's on you, Gabe.
I have no idea, bro.
You
I
want,
hope, right?
the Marlins.
Come on, Gabe. Come on, Mets. Right.
all right. So
Make something happen.
here are my predictions for the American League, and then here are my predictions for the National League. I think the American League, you're going to see like the three teams to look out for are the New York Yankees. Number one,
Astros.
they made some pretty good additions to their team throughout this offseason, and they're still essentially retaining all the other players that they had. So, they've been good for a while. They're going to be good into this season as well. So the Yankees, and I'd add in the Astros. They're still great team, great players, good young core that they have. So Yankees, Astros, and I'm going to add the Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh,
They made some really important pickups
okay.
throughout the offseason, particularly just highlighting one. They signed George Springer, who was formerly of the Houston Astros. That's a great center fielder. He's got so much experience. He's young. He knows how to win. And more importantly, he's clutch. Like in the postseason, that guy steps up to the plate. So those are my American League predictions. Those are the three teams I could see running away with the American League pennant. The National League, I have three teams specifically. On top, as much as I hate to say it, the Los Angeles Dodgers look poised to make another run for the World Series. They have the same exact core as last season, except they added a very well-known pitcher now whose name is Trevor Bauer. He won the Cy Young Award last season, which is the highest pitching accolade that you can get. So they just added him to the mix. They still have their other pitchers. They still have Cody Bellinger, who was an MVP before, Mookie Betts, the reigning MVP. So that team is phenomenal. The second team is San Diego Padres, who made the playoffs last season. They didn't really have the pitching depth they needed to get through the playoffs. Yet they made two key trades, getting the ace pitcher from the Cubs, which is this guy named Yu Darvish. And then they made the trade to get the ace pitcher from Tampa, Blake Snell. Yeah. So they have an awesome pitching rotation. They still have Manny Machado, all-star third baseman, just phenomenal player, MVP status. And Fernando Tatis, also amazing young player who just got a 14-year contract with the Padres. So the Padres, and then lastly, gotta say it, my prediction, they are gonna win the National League East, and you heard it here first. The New York Mets.
Yikes.
New York Mets. And the reason why is they recently made a trade for arguably one of the top 5 players in the league, shortstop from Puerto Rico, Francisco Lindor. So look out for the Mets. They still have their young pitching core, which is led by the best pitcher in baseball right now, which is Jacob deGrom. And they have a really good young pitching staff and young team. So it's going to be interesting to see this season. It's going to be super competitive.
All these predictions are, based on, fingers crossed, knock on wood, no injuries.
Oh,
yeah, no injuries, but also
No
those
showdown.
teams that I mentioned have so much more depth than all the other teams in baseball. Of course, baseball is a crazy sport where you can see, a team that has just guys that you've never heard of
Just go up.
all click at the same exact time and then, end up in the playoffs or in the World Series. So you kind of see that every now and then with like smaller teams, like Miami, Tampa, Oakland A's. But I think that those teams that I mentioned, the three from the American League and the National League, are going to be the teams to look out for, just because they added so much depth into an already, good roster.
Good. All right, Brian, any thoughts?
I
agree.
Yo no miro pelota.
I don't know, man. I go for the Mets just because that's the team I've watched most.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right, last one here on the sports. Is the U.S. women's national team the most successful soccer team we've seen in their respective, obviously, fields? I mean, but dominant in terms of dominant. I mean, I think of UConn women's basketball and how they just seem to win every single year.
They're pretty good. Not pretty good. They're amazing.
I mean,
yeah. U.S. women's
national
soccer team, most successful soccer team
we've seen. Yeah.
I think that they're the most successful women's organization.
Okay.
Sports organization that we've seen. I think that, because there are a lot of other soccer teams that might not be women's soccer teams that have won more trophies per se.
Right.
But I think as far as like the national level, I don't think that. Well, first of all, women's soccer doesn't really have all the following that men's soccer has, specifically at club level, and so you can't really think of clubs when you think of like soccer teams, and so what you're left with is just national teams, and so based on like the very limited exposure that they have, I would say that the United States women's national team is the most successful team I've seen.
Yeah, I just to throw out some numbers here. So they've made the finals. Well, I'm not sure how many times they made the finals, but for the World Cup, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 championships. They've won the World Cup 4 times. They have won the CONCACAF championship and Gold Cup, whatever you want to call it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times.
Oh my.
And they've won the Olympic gold 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So they are a pretty decorated team. I will say that. Are they the best soccer team? Like Brian said, there's so many other teams that have just been around for a lot longer. Like, if you want to go to clubs, the club level, there have been clubs that have just been so successful, in that sense. Like, you talk about the big clubs in Europe, like Real Madrid or
Time out, because this guy just edited the question. He just put U.S. soccer team. So I mean, the easy answer to that, is yes.
Yeah, we cleaned it up because there's a lot of variables. Is this
my personal opinion is that the U.S. women's national soccer team is the most successful national team in soccer in the world, men and women. They are just the most dominated. Yeah, in the world. I think the only other team that can give them a run for their money is the Brazilian national team, men's soccer team, just because of how many World Cups that they've won, how many, what's it called? Copa Americas they've won. But still, I think that the women's national team has been
they've been
dominant, like absolutely dominant.
Very good. All right. Good thoughts. Good thoughts. So thank you for joining the lightning round and staying a little longer. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you're blessed with Psalm 27 and our conversations, and we'll see you next time. Have a great weekend. Peace.